All right. Well, good morning, everyone. We have about 1 minute till we get started. Just wanted to make sure everyone is able to hear and see okay. Someone wants to let me know. Excellent. Perfect. Great. Wonderful. I see many of you are able to hear okay, able to see okay. Yes. All right. Well, it is now 9 a.m. Central Time. Welcome to our very first free webinar of 2025. Can you believe it? I cannot um, I just can't believe that we're already here. Last year was amazing, and this year is already going by so quickly. So, welcome. Welcome. If you are new to our free webinars, my name is Jennifer Bonner. I serve as the tutor team lead here at Archer Review. I'm a certified nurse midwife with over 15 years of nursing experience. I've worked in ICUs, I've worked in endoscopy, labor and delivery, postpartum, and today we are going through a subject that's incredibly important to our career as nurses: legal and ethical concepts. So, before we get started, I would like to know, where are you joining us from? Where are you joining us from? Let's see. And it looks like our poll is not going to work today. So we are just going to use the chat. No worries at all. From Nepal, from Texas, Atlanta, Indiana, hey, Jamaica, Miami, Ohio, New Mexico, Zambia, wow, Nepal. We are all over New York. So we have students joining us on both Zoom and restream. So we have both YouTube and Facebook. And so if for some reason you missed today's lecture, no worries. You can go back. You can watch it on our Facebook page or our YouTube channel. So make sure that you like and subscribe to those so that you are sure not to miss one of our free webinars. Also, if you are on Facebook or on YouTube, go ahead and tag your nursing friends. Let them know that we are here. Maryland, Canada, Philadelphia, Orlando. Awesome. All right. So tell me, we're going to be talking about legal and ethical concepts. So why is it so important that we understand these as nurses? Why do you think that is? We just talked about how we are dealing with legal and ethical concepts in all areas of nursing, whether that's pediatrics, mental health, geriatrics. Um, Many times we even see this in labor and delivery. So we're going to see this across all areas of nursing. So someone is saying advocate for patients' rights, legal perspectives, to respect all during and give proper care. George, Georgia. All right. Yes, welcome. Yeah, all of those to avoid being sued, to give proper care, clients' rights and responsibilities. Yeah, to keep ourselves and our clients safe. Absolutely. We want to make sure we worked really hard for these RN licenses, or we are working really hard to gain them. So, absolutely, we want to make sure that we protect those. Absolutely. Yes. Safe practice. So not only are we wanting to protect ourselves and our license, but we also want to protect those that we are entrusted with to care for. Litigation, yes, absolutely. Providing care according to cultural preferences. Okay, excellent. Very nice. All right. So the first thing we are going to talk about is terminology. Now, if any of you really loved medical terminology, let's see some hands. That was not my cup of tea, but it is so important for us to be able to understand the terms that we are talking about. So there's a good bit of terminology that you're going to be expected to know for NCLEX purposes. If you're someone who struggles with memorization, one of my very favorite ways to work on terminology is creating flashcards. Make flashcards for those major terms and see if you can match them up to the correct definition. This, if you have children at home or you have nieces or nephews, or even if you have, your parents, your grandparents, um, if when I was in mental health, we worked with veterans, and so that was where I learned how to play spades. And so this would actually be sometimes this is a good option for those family members who are in that situation, just kind of helping you with matching games. And so what I would do is I would put the term on one card, the definition of the other, and see if we can match them up. And then you can even have like a not a cheat sheet, but a answer key that you can give to the other person that you're working with, and they can check your knowledge. So let's start with justice. Now, justice is essentially we're asking, is it fair? Are we distributing care evenly? Are we administering care fairly? So, an example of this would be making impartial medical decisions, being fair when we distribute the care. For example, among the clients that are in a group of clients that we're taking care of. Okay, so we're distributing that care. Care needs to be fair, just, and equitably distributed among our group of clients. So justice is a very important term that we need to understand. Now, our next word that we want to make sure we understand, our next term, is often confused with non-maleficence because it sounds a little bit similar. It's beneficence. Okay. And we're going to get to non-maleficence in just a minute, but beneficence is doing good. Are we doing the right thing for our client? So, an example would be a nurse demonstrating this ethical principle by holding a dying client's hand, supporting them through that process. So, beneficence, doing good, we're doing the right thing for our client. Now, we talked about how non-maleficence and beneficence can be very often confused because it sounds very similar. Now, non-maleficence is doing no harm. Now, we see this word starts with non, and usually when we see the root non or the prefix non, it usually goes hand in hand with the word not. So non and not. So we are not doing harm. An example of nurses demonstrating this principle would be like avoiding negligent care of a client. So remember, in order to understand these terms, we need to know what they mean, but we also need to know, what does negligence mean? So we want to make sure that we are providing that proper care. Now, who's up for seeing if we can check our knowledge with a practice question? Let me know if you're up for checking your knowledge with a practice question. Let's see. All right, I'm getting lots of yeses, so let's check it out. So, what ethical principle is accurately paired with the way the ethical principle is applied to nursing practice? Let's see if I can get this up and going. Let's see. Hang on just a second. It is not wanting to work for me today. I apologize. Let me try one more thing really quick. One second. I apologize. We'll just give, if we can't get it to work, we will just give you the options orally and we'll see how that goes. It's not going to work either. No. All right. So, which ethical principle is accurately paired with the way the ethical principle is applied to nursing practice? So, our first one is beneficence, doing no harm during the course of nursing care. Justice, the obligation to be fair, equally dividing time and other resources among a group of clients. Veracity, fully answering our clients' questions without any withholding of information. Or fidelity, upholding the American Nursing Association's Code of Ethics. What do you think? Okay, someone is saying you can't see anything. Are you able to see the question? So the question is, what ethical principle is accurately paired with the way the ethical principle is applied to nursing practice? I apologize. I'm not sure what's going on with Slido today. It is, for some reason, not working for me. Okay. If you answered letter C, so that is veracity, you are correct. So when we are answering our clients' questions, we're not holding back any of that answer or any of that information. That is an application of veracity. So it's being completely truthful. So if someone had a cancer diagnosis, that's not withholding that information. Very good. Many of you got that one. Excellent job. And again, I apologize. Slido is not working for me today. It's being a bit of a stinker for 2025. So, if you have been studying with us, or if you're just getting started, if you are trying to figure out what do I do? There's intense prep, there's sure pass. What do I do? Let me recommend our sure pass combo. Our sure pass combo is my absolute number one recommendation to students by far. Now, let me explain why. Number one, you get access to our Q Bank. For RNs, that's over 2,000 NCLEX style questions where you can go in, you can answer the questions, but you can also look at our detailed rationales. It's going to tell you why is the right answer right, why is the wrong answer wrong, and help you develop more information, help you hold on to that information. Now, what happens if you just took this question and you're like, I don't remember what veracity means? We have on-demand videos just for that. If you're struggling with a particular concept, or you don't understand, maybe you don't understand the difference between Cushing's and Addison's, there is an on-demand video for that to help break it down. We also have our 3-day live review. Our 3-day live review is 3 days. We have our first one of 2025 coming up this week on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And it is a all-day event where we go through the most high yield topics for NCLEX review. So if you're an RN, check out that code there on the left. If you're an LPN, go ahead and scan that code on the right, and we'll drop those links for you in the comments just in case you are needing those. And if you have questions, please don't hesitate to let us know, and we're happy to help. All right, so let's get back to some terminology here. So what about accountability? Now, if you're anything like me, you have probably heard a lot about accountability. Maybe in nursing school, heard about accountability, where you're trying to figure out number one, how do I become accountability? How do I become accountable? Now, accountability is something that shouldn't be new to us, but it's taking responsibility for our actions. It's taking responsibility for that care that we provide, the medications that we give, things like that. Occasionally, something can go wrong. And in that situation, accountability is accepting the consequences and taking responsibility. Now, as a new grad, I saw this quite frequently. because I was working on a brand new unit. It was a stroke ICU, brand new to the hospital I was working in. And there were a lot of new graduate nurses, and we worked the night shift. And so occasionally things would happen. And it is really important that we were able to accept the consequences. We say, yep, I did that, and then learn from it. So we don't want to blame someone else if we make a mistake. And we know that mistakes happen, which is why it's really important for us to make sure that we read, we make sure that we go over those orders, we read back, we verify, and we make sure that we walk through those appropriate steps. Now, what about fidelity? Fidelity, I remember this because fidelity and faithful is, they both start with F. So we're keeping promises even in our responsibilities. So an action or an example of fidelity would be a client request that we not reveal his terminal diagnosis to his family. Well, when we're practicing fidelity, we are not going to disclose that information to the client's family without our client's permission. So if they say, Jennifer, please don't tell my family. This is going to be really hard for them. I don't want them having this information right now. We are going to honor that request. And until they give us other instructions, we are going to just hold that information. Now, autonomy. Many times we think of this from a client's perspective, our client's autonomy, right? Now, autonomy from the nursing perspective is accepting the client as a unique client who has the right to their own opinions, values, and beliefs. So this means we don't pressure our client to make the decision that we would make if we were in our client's situation. So we're not going to judge them for their decision. We're not going to coerce them to make a different decision. This also means that our client has the right to refuse any and all treatment. So, an example of nurses demonstrating this would be obtaining information, obtaining informed consent from our client for treatment, and accepting the situation when a client refuses a medication, maintaining confidentiality. So here's a common one that comes up on the NCLEX. A client who is practicing Jehovah's Witness who needs a blood transfusion. They have the right to refuse that blood transfusion, right? It's their religious belief. They have the right to refuse. So we won't judge. We're not going to try to get them to make a different decision just because we would do something differently. They are autonomous and we need to respect that. Now, what about veracity? We just talked about this just a few minutes ago. Veracity is it's the last ethical principle that we're going to discuss. But when I think of veracity, I think very truthful. Veracity, very truthful. So we are telling the truth. But what about if we don't give the full truth? Now, when I was little, I brought a jacket to school. I didn't want to wear it out to recess. It was just annoying. It was fairly ugly, if I'm being honest. So my teacher came to me and said, "Where's your coat?" And I told her, "I didn't bring a coat." So she said, "Well, let's just go look in your locker and let's see." Well, when she opened up my locker, which I definitely wasn't expecting her to do that, guess what she found? Yeah, she found my jacket. And she said, "Jennifer, what is this?" She picks it up and she's holding it and she says, "What is this?" And I said, that is a jacket. That's not a coat. You asked me where my coat was. So I omitted part of the truth, and omitting part of the truth makes it a lie. So we don't get to decide what our client learns about their diagnosis. It's their right to know. So this is even if we think the news might upset them. There have been a few times in practice when I had to give a client news that they had cancer. And most people don't want this type of news, but it is their right to know. So I don't get to decide what parts they get to find out or anything like that. I realize my client may not take the news of cancer very well, so I won't tell her it's terminal. Well, practicing veracity, I have to tell her the full truth. Another example that I've seen quite a bit, especially in the world of pediatrics, is telling a kiddo, "Don't worry, it's not going to hurt." But we know that it will. We don't want them to be scared, but it goes against this ethical principle. Now, what about the lying for the sake of convenience? Have you ever told a client that something isn't possible or has to be done earlier than usual? Like, waking in the early hours of the morning so that you can get through your work sooner, or because maybe you're just too busy. Maybe in the last part of your shift, as you're trying to leave, a client asks for an extra pillow. You're all done. You want to go home. So you tell them, I'm sorry, we're all out of pillows, right? We're all done. We're ready to just clock out. It doesn't sound like a big deal, does it? But it does go against this ethical principle of veracity. So these are concepts that are really important to understand, but it's also important that we understand how to apply them on the NCLEX. All right, so let's talk about some legal concepts. So these can cause some varying feelings. After all, we are either went to school or we're going to nursing school, but not law school. But there are a few terms that I want you to be aware of as they apply to our practice as nurses. So the first two that we're going to discuss are advanced directives and living wills. Advanced directive is a set of instructions that someone is going to prepare in advance of illness or a health that's going to determine their healthcare wishes. Okay. Many times people will have these as they're getting older, and understanding that there may come a time when decisions need to be made about their care that they're not going to be able to make for themselves. So basically, what this document does is it tells their loved ones, it tells their family or their friends what they would like done in case there are certain medical situations. So it's just going to state what their wishes are. A living will is a little bit different. It's a type of advanced directive that becomes effective when a person is terminally ill. Now, living will, it's a type of advanced directive, becomes effective when a person is terminally ill. Both are legal documents with the goal of our client making what their wishes are and making them known. They can specify what the client is and is not okay with. For example, they might be okay with being on a ventilator, but if they're on it for 5 days without progress, they might want to have that disconnected. Not only do we need to know what these documents are, but we need to make sure that we read them and we understand and exercise the ethical principle of client autonomy. So, have you ever been watching one of those medical drama shows where someone starts chest compressions on a client and then they find out that they had a DNR? This happens from time to time, and we need to make sure that we advocate for our clients' wishes. Now, medical power of attorney. This is another legal term that you're going to hear. It's a legal document that designates a specific person to make medical decisions for our client if they are unable to make their own. Now, if the client has not designated someone, and depending on which state the client is going to determine who makes that decision based on various state laws. Now, with this document, the client doesn't spell out their wishes. They basically say, my wife, Gloria, she gets to decide. And sometimes that client will have this and an advance directive, and that loved one will be able to basically reference what those wishes are. And that makes the decision making just a little bit easier. Now, where I live, the person's spouse is given the initial right. If they are unavailable, that goes to an adult child, and then a parent, and then an adult sibling, and then a grandparent or an adult grandchild. There's a kind of a hierarchy that they follow. When there isn't a family member available or family members don't agree on the decision to be made, that state can make the healthcare decision. So they also determine who's authorized to make the decision or to appoint their own representative to make a decision. So because we don't all practice in the state, you're not going to be given a question about that on the NCLEX, about that chain of command, because it's going to vary. But you definitely should understand what a medical power of attorney is. Now, there are a few federal laws that we need to talk about. The first one, I'm fairly certain you are all familiar with, is HIPAA, the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. Now, this protects our clients' health information and their medical records. Okay. The ADA is the Americans with Disabilities Act, and this law prohibits discrimination, specifically against those clients with disabilities. So basically, if there's a public place, it needs to be accessible to those with disabilities. So public pools, public transportation, libraries, things like that. Think about those types of places, your hospitals, your libraries. They have ramps, they have elevators, right? I was even at our public pool the other day, even though we're in the middle of winter. We have an indoor public pool, and there's a lift for those who are unable to walk into the pool. So they need to have those options available. Now, the last one is EMTALA, the Emergency Medical Treatment and Active Labor Act. Now, this requires stabilization treatment for anyone coming to the ER, regardless if they have insurance or the ability to pay for services. This is high priority. Even for those who use the ER as a primary care facility. Okay. They come in, they stub their toe, they show up to the ER. If they show up, they have the right to be treated. Okay. This also applies when we're transferring clients. When sending them from the ER to a long-term care facility, there's paperwork that shows they were treated and someone is accepting their care. All right, so let's get back to a couple more legal terms. A few that I want you to be aware of is tort. Tort is a wrongful act or an infringement of a right. It doesn't specify verbal or physical. It's just an infringement on someone's rights. Okay. Then we have negligence. Negligence, that failure to take care in doing something. So this could be something like you need to hang some antibiotics that were crucial. And instead, it was time for your lunch. So you decided, I'll do that later. I'm going to go to lunch. This could cause harm to our client, and we didn't take proper care. So that could be negligence. Malpractice is when the negligence is something legal or improper professional activity or treatment. Okay. We're not up to the standard of care. This can be intentional or it can be unintentional. You don't have to be sitting at your desk making a master plan to go and harm your client. It could be something totally unintentional. Now, assault is an act that can be criminal or torturous. Remember the word tort, a wrongful act or an infringement of a right that threatens physical harm to a person. It doesn't matter if harm actually occurs. You don't actually have to touch the person. Nope. If someone is in your personal space and they're yelling at you, that's assault. Now, it becomes battery when physical contact occurs. Now, battery is unconsented physical contact with another person. It doesn't have to be violent. Now, our last one is false imprisonment. And this is really important for us as nurses. False imprisonment is the state of being imprisoned without legal authority. Now, we see this come up on the NCLEX quite a bit when talking about restraints. Restraints, excellent tool when used appropriately, but they're used as a last resort. So if we restrain someone without really good reason, this can be false imprisonment, and they must be a danger to themselves or to others in order for us to legally be able to use these. We also can't hold someone against their wishes without authority. Now, think mental health. Clients are being held involuntarily. Sometimes they're involuntarily committed. This is where a judge determines that they should be in the hospital. And this paperwork gives us permission to hold them. If not, we do not have the right to hold these clients. All right. So we talked about this for just a few minutes ago, intense prep. If you're someone that needs a little more structure, intense prep might be for you. This is a 6-week structured program where you're going to move through a specific study guide. It's specifically tailored for the 6-week program, and you're going to move through with other students. It's kind of like boot camp, but let me tell you, it is intense. I like to think of it like we're combining intense prep with tutoring, or we're combining SurePass combo with tutoring. So you'll have a tutor that walks your group through this 6 weeks, and every week you're going to get personalized feedback to your inbox on how to make your weaknesses into your strengths. So if that's something you're interested in, I know we have a group that starts this week. So if you're interested in their next group coming up, go ahead, scan that QR code and see what the options are. Now, our other thing is private tutoring, near and dear to my heart. This is an amazing opportunity for you to get expert opinions in a 1-hour session. So You have a whole hour where you can cover, let's say you're struggling with mental health and maternity. You can cover both of those things. It is $75 for an hour, but if you schedule 3 or more at once, you will actually get a discount, or 6 or more at once, you get a bigger discount. So make sure you check out those options. Excuse me. Now, the last thing we're going to talk about is documentation. This is vital. The medical record that we document in can be used in a court of law. So this is why we discuss it here. It can be used in a lawsuit for 10 years after care. Did you know that? 10 years. I know that even if I remember that client the next day, I surely won't remember them 10 years from now. So that's why we need to be great charters. Now, remember, there are others who can see what we've charted, other providers, even the client. And it can also be reviewed by Joint Commission, by Medicare, Medicaid, and other quality assurance committees. So it's really important that we are documenting well. And remember, if it wasn't documented, it wasn't done. Now, when I started my first job as a mid-level provider, there was a coder who told me to treat each chart like it's going to court. So here are some things that are going to help us make sure to chart well. The first one, chart in real time. So we need to be charting things in the actual time that they happened, and we're only going to chart under our name. We chart accurately. If we're quoting a client, we use the same words that they did. This can be kind of difficult sometimes, especially if our client is using foul language. But we want to make sure that if we are quoting them, we use the exact words that they used in quotations. We're also not going to quote, we're not going to chart early. Things can change really quickly. So let's say we decide to round early and we note that Mr. Smith is resting comfortably. We rounded at, let's say we rounded at 10:20 p.m., but we charted it for 10:30. Now, when it's actually 10:30, Mr. Smith codes, and this can look a bit suspicious when we're charting both he's resting comfortably and we're starting compressions, right? So when we're caring for clients in the hospital, they're not generally having the best day. And they might be acting in ways or saying things that they wouldn't normally. And this can sometimes create opinions of them. And we want to make sure that we refrain from documenting those opinions. If necessary, we would want to use quotations that we talked about earlier in order to make our statement. All right, so let me know in the chat, what are some ways that we can make sure our documentation is accurate, but also efficient? What do you think? What are some ways that we can make sure our documentation is accurate and also efficient? Yeah, charting in real time. Absolutely. If you missed part of the lecture, you can always go back to Facebook and it will be posted there for you. Yeah, chart after completing a task, clear charting. Absolutely. Timely. Short and to the point, keywords. Yeah, subjective. So we want to make sure that we are charting facts. Use quotations, direct statements. Absolutely. You guys got the key points. Excellent job. So I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't talk to you about all the ways that Archer is with you. So we have everything from pre-nursing in our T's department to nursing school to when you're studying for the NCLEX and beyond. So if you are a mid-level provider, you still need to understand these ethical principles, these legal concepts. So Archer is here for you every step of the way. If you are looking at jumping into the next phase of nursing by becoming a nurse practitioner, check out our options available by scanning that QR code. We have an amazing community of nurse practitioners ready to walk beside you. Now, remember, here at Archer, we are more than just test prep. We are here. We are dedicated to your success. I've had so many students reach out to tell me, hey, I really appreciated this tutor, or I really appreciated your help, and I finally passed my exam. We love hearing success stories. So please don't hesitate. Reach out. Let us know if you are struggling or if there's a way that we can come alongside you in your nursing journey. We are happy to help however we can. All right, everyone. That's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you back next time. We'll see you on next Monday for our next free webinar. Take care, everyone.